He still turns wrenches all day, probably still smells like an oil rag. My family laughed at my job for years. Now my dad's standing in my office begging me to hire him. Hey Reddit, ever had your whole family write you off like you were just background noise until they suddenly remember you exist because you're doing better than them? Yeah, mine spent years acting like my work didn't matter, never asking about my life, and definitely never inviting me to anything unless someone guilt-tripped them. Now that I, Eddie, 34 male, have built something for myself, they've started circling back with the whole family is family speech. And my dad just pulled a stunt so entitled, you'd think he was auditioning for a reality show. Let's talk about how that played out. So, if my family were a company, they'd be in the luxury opinions business, selling takes nobody asked for at a premium price. The board of directors is dad, mom, and my sister, with the cousins and uncles acting like unpaid interns desperate for approval. Dad's whole personality revolves around being the corporate success story. Dress shirt, tie, leather briefcase he's probably had since the 90s. He's the kind of guy who calls business cards relationship tools. He measures people's worth by job title, car make, and whether you've got a career trajectory. If you're not in that world, you're irrelevant. Mom's no better. She doesn't even try to hide the fact that she values people for their networking potential. She's the queen of introducing people with their occupation attached. This is my friend Linda. She's a dentist. If she were to introduce me, it would probably be, this is my son Eddie. He works with cars? Said with the same tone you'd use for, he collects stamps. My sister's been on their wavelength since high school. She was the golden child, got all the praise for straight A's, debate club, then landed an office job downtown right after college. She could have been stapling paper all day, and they'd still call her a rising professional. Me? I didn't play that game. Dropped out of college at 21, went straight into working at an auto shop. To them, that meant I'd thrown my life away. Never mind that I loved the work. Never mind that I was learning the business side along the way. None of it mattered because I wasn't sitting at a desk in a tower. Family gatherings were like corporate networking events where I was the guy who accidentally wandered in from the street. They'd do the polite, oh hey, and then move on to talking to people who mattered. I stopped going after a while. Nobody noticed, which kind of proved my point. When I did show up, I'd get the same script. Dad asking if I was still turning wrenches or if I liked being a monkey grease in that voice that made it sound like I was confessing to a crime. Mom smiling too wide, asking if business was picking up, like I ran a lemonade stand. My sister barely said 2 words unless it was to tell me to take a group photo for them. They didn't know and never asked that after a few years at the shop, I started my own thing, a logistics company specializing in fleet management for hotels, events, and private contracts. Started with 2 vans, grew to over 80 vehicles, and multiple contracts across the state. Staff, scheduling software, maintenance operations, the whole deal. I didn't tell them because I didn't owe them that information. And honestly, watching them stay stuck on mechanic in their heads was almost funny. Grandpa was the one exception. He's not the kind of guy to gush, but he never looked down on me. He'd ask how things were going in a genuine way, but he also never stuck his neck out to correct the others. I think he knew they wouldn't listen. Maybe he figured I'd get further letting them underestimate me. Fast forward to a few months ago. News breaks that my sister's having this giant wedding at a swanky hotel. Engagement party? Didn't hear about it until photos hit Facebook. Bridal shower? Didn't even know when it was. No surprise there. I had no plans to crash it. Then one afternoon, I get this thick, overly fancy envelope in the mail. Gold embossed lettering, some kind of wax seal like they're the royal family. Inside, an invitation to the wedding. No personal note. No, we'd love for you to be there. Just the card. For a second, I thought maybe I made the list by accident. But then I got a call from Grandpa that night. He didn't beat around the bush. Said he told them he wouldn't attend unless both his grandkids were invited. My sister apparently argued that Eddie probably wouldn't come anyway. Grandpa told her that was her problem to deal with. So now I'm in this position. They clearly don't want me there, but they're forced to include me because Grandpa pulled rank. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of me declining. The old me might have stayed home to avoid the awkwardness. The current me? I've built something from scratch, run a business with contracts that are bigger than their annual salaries combined, and I don't need to flex a single word to prove it. Showing up in a clean, tailored suit is enough to break the broke mechanic image they've kept alive for years. I circled the date on my calendar, not because I was excited about the wedding, but because I was curious to see how long they could keep up their act once I walked in. And if they thought I'd blend into the background, They were about to find out I'm a lot harder to ignore when you've spent your whole life pretending I don't exist. So D-Day came. The hotel was one of those places that looked like it charged you extra just for breathing too close to the walls. Marble floors, gold accents everywhere, and staff who moved like they were allergic to standing still. I got out of my car, handed the keys to the valet, and walked up the steps slow enough to take in the scene. Halfway to the doors, I heard it. Dad's voice. You couldn't mistake it. Loud, clear, and always trying to hit that "I'm the most interesting guy here" tone. I didn't even have to look to know he was holding court with his little circle of relatives, and probably a couple of the groom's family. Yeah, Eddie's still doing that mechanic thing, he was saying. Turns wrenches all day. Probably still smells like an oil rag. We'll see how long he lasts here tonight. Doesn't exactly fit in at places like this. That earned him a nice round of polite laughter. The kind where people aren't laughing because it's funny, but because it's easier than disagreeing. Even Mom's voice chimed in with a, well, at least he dressed up. I didn't stop walking. Didn't even give them the satisfaction of a glance. But I caught one of my cousins looking over with that mix of pity and smugness, like she couldn't wait to tell someone else what I looked like now. Inside, the place was huge. Chandeliers overhead. Tables draped in white cloth so crisp they could have been ironed on the spot. Waiters in black vests weaving through the crowd, carrying trays of tiny appetizers that probably had more garnish than food. I stuck to the edge of the room, scanning faces. Most of them were people I hadn't seen in years, and the few I did recognize acted like they didn't notice me. Fine by me. Less small talk to fake my way through. The ceremony itself was clearly already done. This was the cocktail hour, where people sip overpriced juice in fancy glasses and talk about who bought the biggest gift. My sister was across the room in her dress, smiling for photos with her new husband. For a second, I wondered if she even remembered I was here. Then her eyes met mine, and she froze. Just for half a second, but it was enough. Her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore, and she quickly looked away like she'd been caught in a lie. The groom, Jack, I think, was all smiles though, working the room like a politician. He eventually made his way over to me with my sister trailing a step behind him. He came over with my sister trailing behind. Nice to meet you, he said, firm handshake. Eddie, I said. You're the brother? He asked, a flicker of surprise. Yep. Something flickered in his expression. He covered it quick, but I caught it. That microsecond of confusion before he let go of my hand and moved on to greet someone else. I didn't follow. I drifted toward the bar, not for a drink, but for the view. From there I could see everything. The dance of people trying to look important, the subtle glances, the quiet judgments. That's when I noticed Jack again. This time, he was standing off to the side, phone in hand, eyes flicking between the screen and me. His face changed with every glance. Confusion, realization, and then something like regret. I kept my posture loose, hands in my pockets, like I was just another bored guest killing time. No reason to give away anything yet. The rest of the cocktail hour was just observation for me. Who ignored me, who made a point to avoid eye contact, who looked like they wanted to come over but couldn't think of a safe opener. I wasn't going to make it easy for any of them. Eventually, they announced it was time to move into the main hall for dinner. Everyone shuffled toward the big double doors, and I let the crowd go ahead before slipping in near the end. No rush. I wasn't here for the seating arrangement or the speeches. I took my seat near the back, which I'm sure wasn't an accident. From here, I could see everything without being seen much myself. Dinner service started, and I kept quiet, answering any attempts at small talk with short, polite replies. I wasn't giving them much to work with. Halfway through the first course, I noticed Jack lean over to whisper something to my sister. Her eyes shot in my direction, then back to him. She looked unsettled. Whatever he'd found out, he wasn't keeping it to himself anymore. I leaned back in my chair, letting the noise of the room wash over me. No need to rush anything. The night was just getting started, and I already knew the tone was going to shift. People can ignore you for years, but the second they think there's a reason to care, they turn into detectives. And judging by the way glances were starting to linger on me a little longer, I could tell the investigation had begun. You can feel it when the eyes hold longer and the conversations pause when you pass. Phones appear out of nowhere, thumbs moving quick. That's not social scrolling. That's recon. Jack left my sister's side like he just remembered something urgent. Phone in one hand, half smile gone. He stopped at one of the groomsmen, angled the screen, said a few low words. The groomsman's eyebrows went up. He glanced at me, then back to Jack, the way someone does when they're trying to match the photo on a news article to the guy sitting in the room. Next stop for Jack was a woman in a green dress, looked like an aunt from his side. Same move. Screen out. Quick explanation. Her head turned a fraction too far toward me before she caught herself. I stayed seated, fork in hand. Let them pass the story along. The less I moved, the more curious they'd get. One of my cousins made a slow lap by my table. We hadn't spoken in years. She muttered, "Hey, we should catch up sometime," already angling her body away before the words were out. Drive-by networking. The hotel's event coordinator spotted me from across the room. She clocked me instantly. We'd worked together before. Clipboard under her arm, direct eye contact. She stopped at my table. "Mr. Eddie, quick update. The evening shuttle's here early. Stage now or in 20? Loud enough for my table to hear," I said. "Stage them now. Have the drivers loop back after drop-off." She smiled. On it. 3 heads at my table followed her out like they'd just spotted a clue in a detective show. One of the groom's friends leaned closer. "You run transport for these events?" "Something like that," I said, keeping my focus on my plate. He opened his mouth to press, but a bridesmaid dropped into the seat next to him, and I was forgotten. At the head table, my sister leaned toward Jack. Her lips moved fast, hands fidgeting with her napkin. Jack kept his gaze locked in my direction while answering. Her face tightened with every sentence. The groomsman from earlier passed behind me, muttered, "Nice work, man," and kept walking. I didn't bother turning around. Then my phone buzzed. New number. Cousin Lisa. "Is it true you own Calix Logistics?" I didn't reply. A different cousin. One who once told me, "Manual labor isn't a career." Walked straight up during dessert. "Heard you've been busy. We should grab coffee sometime." I gave her the polite half-smile and didn't commit to anything. She left looking satisfied, which amused me more than it should have. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw 2 of my drivers coming in through the service hall. Each was wheeling a heavy black case stamped with my company logo in bold white. A small group of younger guests stopped them, pointing at the logo and then over at me. The drivers nodded politely and kept moving. By the time I sat down, Jack was planted a few feet from my chair, like he'd been waiting for the courage to speak. "Hey, can we talk for a second?" he asked. I got up, followed him toward the wall. "You didn't mention—" He hesitated, scanning the room. "You run Calix Logistics?" "That's me. Why didn't you say anything?" "Why would I?" He gave a short, frustrated exhale. "Your dad's been telling everyone you still work in some garage." "Sounds about right," I said, already heading back to my seat. Jack stayed where he was, probably replaying every conversation he'd ever had with my family. The eyes on me now weren't just curious. They were recalculating. I've seen that look before. It's when people start wondering if they should have been nicer to you earlier. 2 seats over, a cousin I barely knew was suddenly telling someone else that we go way back. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. Mom eventually arrived, smiling like she'd been waiting for her turn all evening. "Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well?" "You never asked," I said. She blinked, regrouped. "Well, family's family. I stood before she could finish. "Enjoy the rest of the night." She stayed for a second, then made her way back to Dad. He'd been watching me like a hawk from across the room. He didn't move toward me, just kept his drink in hand, jaw tight. Meanwhile, more ripple effects. 2 groomsmen came by, shook my hand, and thanked me for hooking them up with the smooth transport. I hadn't offered anything, but the assumption alone was enough to make Dad shift uncomfortably in his seat. The investigation phase was done. They'd confirmed what they wanted. Now came the pivot. The awkward transition from pretending I didn't exist to pretending they'd always been proud. I didn't give them an opening. I stayed at my table watching them try to figure out how to rewrite history in front of witnesses. The moment dessert plates cleared, the migration started. People who hadn't said a word to me all night were suddenly orbiting my table, like they'd been waiting for an opening. A cousin in a blue dress sat down without asking. "It's crazy we don't see each other more," she said, resting her elbow on the table like we'd been in a deep conversation for years. "Yeah," I said, leaning back. She started fishing for stories. How I got started, what my day-to-day looked like. But before I could even decide if I wanted to answer, Uncle Greg slid in on the other side. "We've been meaning to have a proper talk," he said. "Business to business." I glanced between them. "You two should catch up," I said, standing and walking away. They stayed there, blinking, as if I'd just walked off in the middle of a handshake. At the bar, a group of my sister's friends was lined up for drinks. One spotted me, tapped her friend, and next thing I knew they were both smiling like we were old classmates. "You're the one with the transport company, right? My dad's been talking about needing a fleet service." "Talk to him," I said, nodding toward the guy she'd pointed at. I kept walking. Every step I took, someone else intercepted me. An uncle wanted to bounce an idea off me. A groomsman asked if I did VIP rates. Even my second cousin's husband cornered me to ask if I handled airport runs. Back near the head table, Mom was making the rounds, her hand on people's arms, nodding along to whatever they were saying. She spotted me and waved me over like she was calling in a waiter. When I got there, she lowered her voice. "We're all just so proud of you. Your father was just saying." I looked past her to see Dad mid-laugh with one of Jack's uncles. He saw me looking and broke off from the conversation. "Eddie," he said, like we were greeting each other for the first time. "Glad you could make it tonight. It's important to keep family close." I raised an eyebrow. "That what we're doing?" "Of course," he said quickly. "We've all had our misunderstandings. But at the end of the day, family is family. You can't put a price on that." Before I could answer, Jack walked up. "Everything running smooth with the shuttles?" he asked. "Perfect," I said. Dad's eyes flicked between us. "Shuttles?" Jack looked confused. "Yeah, your son's company is handling the entire transport operation for tonight." "He didn't tell you?" Dad forced a laugh, but it came out flat. "We don't need to bore everyone with work talk." "Not boring to me," Jack said. "It's impressive. Big operation." The table around us was suddenly quieter. People were pretending not to listen, but clearly catching every word. Dad put a hand on my shoulder. "You know, with your skills and my connections, we could—" I stepped back. "Not tonight." His smile tightened. "We'll talk soon." I walked off before he could try again. The dance floor opened, but I stayed near the perimeter. People kept coming over in twos and threes. Each one started with a compliment, then eased into an ask. Could I help with a corporate account? Did I have an opening for a partnership? Could I offer a family discount? I didn't commit to anything. "Send it to my office," was my default answer, knowing none of them had the email. Half an hour later, Dad found me again. This time he came straight to the point. "We should work something out. I'm thinking, hear me out. You give me a small share in the company. Nothing crazy. That way it stays in the family." I stared at him. Why would I do that? He blinked like I'd just asked him why the sky was blue. "Because it's the right thing to do. I've been in business my whole life. I can help you. Family helps family." "You mean I give you part of what I built so you can say you were involved?" "That's not fair," he said, glancing around like he needed witnesses. "I'm talking about legacy, about building something together." I kept my voice level. "I already built it." His jaw twitched. "How could you talk to me like this? After everything?" "Everything what?" I said. He didn't answer, just shook his head like I'd lost my mind and walked off. Within minutes, Mom was at my side. "You can't just shut him down like that. He's trying to help." "Help himself," I said. She sighed dramatically and walked off too. The rest of the night, Dad avoided me. But I caught him talking to people with that fake, warm tone he uses when he's angling for something. Every so often, I'd see someone glance at me while he spoke. By the time the cake came out, I'd had enough. I found Grandpa near the back, shaking hands with one of Jack's relatives. "Heading out?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He nodded once, the kind of nod that says he'd already guessed why. "Good," he said. "Let them come to you now." I shook his hand, walked out through the front doors, and felt the night air hit my face. Inside, I knew the conversations would keep going. They'd rewrite the version of me they'd been selling for years. Now I was worth talking to, worth knowing, worth keeping in the family. But not on my terms. Not tonight. By the time I got home, my phone had 3 missed calls. 2 from Mom, 1 from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in over a year. No voicemails, no texts. They'd want me to call back so they could start the "we should all get together soon" routine. I powered the phone off and went to bed. The next morning, I was at my office by 6:30. The drivers were already checking in, paperwork being signed, schedules updated. The usual. I was halfway through reviewing a contract when Kendra, my operations manager, walked in. "There's a guy in the lobby asking for you," she said. "Name?" She hesitated. "Says he's your dad." I set the pen down. "Did he give a reason?" "Nope. Just told the receptionist it's family business, and he needs to see you now." I stood, walked out of my office, and sure enough, there he was, standing in the lobby like he owned the place. Polo shirt, pressed khakis, arms folded. "Morning," I said. "Busy?" he asked, glancing around at the staff. "It's a business, so yeah." "I'll be quick," he said, already walking toward my office like the conversation was happening, whether I liked it or not. Once inside, he didn't sit, just stood there, pacing a little. "We need to talk about opportunity," he said. "Whose opportunity?" "Ours," he said, as if the answer was obvious. The wedding reminded me. "You've built something solid here. With my experience, we could really take it to the next level." I leaned on the desk. Define we. You, me, the family. You bring me in as a partner. Give me, say, 10%. I start making calls, opening doors, bringing in contracts you'd never touch on your own. I stared at him. You want me to give you 10% of my company for free? It's not free, he said, offended. It's an investment in keeping this business in the family. You think it looks good if I'm not involved? I don't care how it looks. His jaw tightened. You've got a good thing here. Don't be stupid. You can't forget where you came from. I took a step closer. Where I came from was you telling everyone I was broke and irrelevant. And now you're here asking for a cut. That's not what I raised a hand. We're done. You can see yourself out. He laughed, but it wasn't amused. How could you treat your own father like this? After everything I've done? You mean after everything you've said? His voice went louder. You think you're better than me now? You wouldn't have half this without the work ethic I taught you. I opened the door. Meeting's over. He glared, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. Staff kept their eyes down as he left, but I knew they'd heard every word. 2 days later, it escalated. I was in the middle of a site check at one of our hotel contracts when my phone rang. Kendra again. Your dad's back. This time he's in the driver bay talking to people. I headed straight back. By the time I got there, he was leaning against one of the vans, holding court with 3 of my drivers. All right, guys, enjoy the break, I said. They scattered. Dad straightened up. I was just telling them how much potential you've got here, but you're thinking too small. This is your last unannounced visit, I said. You can't block me out, he replied. We're family. I'm offering to help you, and you're acting like I'm some stranger. You are when it comes to my business. His face flushed. You're making a mistake. I could take this to levels you can't even imagine. But if you don't want my help, fine. Don't come crying to me when you hit a wall. I turned and walked away. He stayed just long enough to make sure the staff noticed him leaving. That weekend, Mom called. Mom. No, hello, just, you need to fix things with your father. Things are fine from my end, I said. He's hurt, she said. You embarrassed him at work. He embarrassed himself. She sighed heavily. This is childish. You've got plenty. Why can't you share? Because I built it. You wouldn't have that attitude if you understood family loyalty, she snapped, and hung up. 3 weeks passed with no contact. Then I got a text from my sister. Dad lost his job. Call him. I didn't. But then, despite my warning, 2 days later, he showed up again, this time looking different. No polo, no pressed khakis, hoodie, worn jeans, no wedding ring. Looked like things at home weren't great either. He didn't even wait for me to invite him into the office. Morning, I said. Morning, he replied, scanning the office. You've built yourself a nice setup here. It works, I said, motioning toward my office. Once we were inside, he didn't sit, just stood there, shifting his weight. I'm not here to argue, he started. I came because I need a little help. What kind of help? He shrugged like it was nothing. Nothing huge, just a little cash flow issue right now. Things are complicated. I was thinking you could float me something just to get through the month. I leaned against the desk. How much is a little? He named a number that wasn't small. That's not little, I said. It is for you. He shot back quickly, like he'd been waiting to use that line. Look, I'm not asking for a gift. Think of it as a family loan. Do you have a plan to pay it back? His pause was the answer. It's temporary, he insisted. And this way, it stays in the family. You can trust me. I shook my head. I'm not handing you money. His eyes narrowed. After everything I've done for you, I cut him off. You spent years making sure everyone thought I was a failure. Now you're here because you need me. That's not lost on me. This isn't about the past. It's about family helping family. You want my help? I'll give you a job. His head jerked back. A job? Entry level. Field work. You'll answer to my shift lead. Uniform required. Regular pay. Same as anyone else. He laughed, but it had no humor in it. That's a joke, right? Nope. It's the only offer I'm making. I'm your father, he said slowly, like the words should override logic. And I'm running a business. Those are the terms. You'd have me out there turning wrenches? You'd have yourself doing honest work. You said you needed help. This is help. His mouth tightened. I came here as a man asking for support, not charity. You're twisting this. You came here expecting money. I'm offering a way to earn it. Big difference. For a second, he just stared at me, like I'd spoken in another language. Then he stepped toward the door. You'll regret this when you need me one day. Don't wait by the phone, I said. He left without another word, and Kendra watched him go from the reception desk. Family visit? She asked. Something like that. I was halfway through approving an equipment purchase when my phone lit up with my sister's name. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. "You're unbelievable," she said as soon as I picked up. "Good morning to you too," I replied. "Dad's in debt, he's drowning, he's jobless, and you, what? Just let him sink?" I leaned back in my chair. I offered him a life raft. He didn't want it. "You mean that insult of a job offer? You know what that looked like to him?" "Generous," I said flatly. That's what it looked like. A steady paycheck, honest work, something he could count on. "You're missing the point," she snapped. "He's our dad. You're supposed to take care of him. He's a grown man who spent years making sure I knew I wasn't worth his time. Now suddenly I'm supposed to be his ATM? No thanks." "You've changed," she said, like it was an insult. "Yeah, I have boundaries now." She let out an exasperated noise and hung up. I set the phone down, already knowing that wasn't the end of it. 2 days later, I got my proof that he didn't want help. He just wanted money. I'd just wrapped a meeting with a hotel client when Kendra buzzed me. "Your dad's here again." "Lobby?" "Nope. He's outside by the loading dock." I walked out back and there he was. Same hoodie and jeans from last time, except now he looked even rougher. Hair uncombed, eyes tired. He didn't waste time. "I'll take the job," he said. Just like that? "Yeah, things haven't been great," he admitted, avoiding my eyes. "I need something steady. You said the offer was there." "It still is," I said, crossing my arms. "Entry level. Uniform. Report to Calvin." "I remember," he muttered. I tilted my head. "Funny. You used to say working here was blue-collar grunt stuff. I'd even told Uncle Ray I'd never amount to more than an oil rag. That was a long time ago. And yet here we are. Me running the place. You asking to work under me. Life's funny." He gave me a look that wasn't quite an apology, but wasn't defiance either. "Are you going to rub it in, or are we doing this?" "Both," I said without missing a beat. "Uniform fittings tomorrow at 3. Don't be late." The next day, he showed up for the fitting. The vendor handed him a navy shirt with the company logo. He held it up, staring like it was an alien artifact. "It's work clothes," I said. "Not a tux. Try it on." When he stepped out of the changing room, I had to bite back a smirk. The logo was stitched perfectly over his chest, the same as every other employee. "Looks good," I said. "You'll blend right in." He didn't reply. Monday morning, he reported for duty. Calvin, my shift lead, ran through the basics. Assignments, safety checks, who to go to for what. Dad stood there listening, hands jammed in his pockets, until Calvin tossed him a pair of gloves. "Filter changes and diagnostics on van 14, Calvin said. Dad looked at the gloves like he'd never seen a pair before. By the time I passed through the bay after lunch, the gloves were on. The shirt was already smudged with grease, and he was knee-deep in work alongside one of the junior techs. That first week was awkward. Not for me, but for him. I didn't treat him differently. No special breaks, no cushy assignments. He rotated through the same tasks as everyone else. Oil changes, diagnostics, part swaps. The guys in the shop treated him like a newbie because that's what he was. And every time I walked through, I'd catch him glancing my way like he was waiting for some sign of approval. I didn't give it. End of week 1, Calvin stopped by my office. "He's keeping up," Calvin said. "Not fast, but he's not quitting either." "That's all I ask," I replied. The next week, Dad came to me at the end of his shift. "I'm not saying this work is easy," he started, "but I can handle more." "Good," I said. "We'll bump you to heavier rotations next month. Earn it." He nodded and left. 2 weeks in, I caught him in the break room talking to another tech. "They didn't see me at first. Never thought I'd end up here," he was saying, "but I guess my son's not the screw-up I thought." It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was the closest I was going to get. I stepped in and grabbed a coffee. "Van 9's overdue for its tire rotation," I told him. "Take someone with you." "On it," he said, moving quick. By the end of the month, he'd stopped acting like the work was beneath him. He was still proud, still avoided admitting I'd been right, but he showed up on time, stayed busy, and didn't cause drama. One afternoon, my sister texted me again. "I still think you could have just given him the money." I replied, "And I think watching him work for it is better for everyone." She didn't respond. Then came payday. I passed through the shop, handing out envelopes to the guys who still preferred paper over direct deposit. Dad took his, opened it, and scanned the stub. "It's not bad," he said. "Honest pay." "Better than debt," I replied. He looked at me for a second, then nodded slowly. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the man who once went out of his way to make me feel small, now wearing my company's logo, cashing my company's paycheck. And not because I humiliated him into it, but because he had no choice but to accept that my way was the only way forward. Exactly how it should be.